Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into joint health, and honestly, you might want to brace yourself because it seems like the entire medical conversation has basically flipped on its head. For so long, the script was really simple and, well, kind of depressing. You'd hear, your cartilage is wearing down, or you need to rebuild it. And the advice was usually, take some glucosamine and just hope for the best. It always felt like this losing battle.
And that script, our sources show it's pretty much obsolete now in serious orthopedic circles. The frustration with that old model, the one that was only about tissue repair, it really forced researchers to look somewhere else.
So they shifted their focus.
Completely. They shifted to understanding and supporting the joint environment itself. And it's this deeper understanding of, the chemistry and mechanics inside the joint, not just the surface, that explains why you're now seeing these new, much more successful approaches popping up.
And that is exactly what we're going to unpack today. We're going to go through these sources and explain why doctors pivoted away from that singular obsession with cartilage.
Right.
We'll show you what they're focusing on now, which is this incredible interplay of lubrication, hydration, and friction. So, okay, let's unpack this, starting with why that old model just wasn't working.
Okay, so first we have to be clear. Cartilage absolutely matters. I mean, it's the cushion, it's what keeps bone from grinding on bone. But when researchers really started looking at adult joint health, they ran into some pretty harsh biological truths. The main one being that in adults, cartilage regeneration is, well, it's incredibly slow. It barely has a blood supply. So once the damage is really there, the body just doesn't have the tools to do a quick rebuild.
And that leads right to this second point the sources make, which is that supplements, the ones that are just building blocks for cartilage.
Yeah, the classic ones.
They rarely, if ever, actually lead to a visible, significant rebuilding of tissue in someone who's had this problem for a while. It's like they hit a biological wall.
Yeah.
But the real game changer was this clinical paradox. This is what blew the old thinking wide open.
It really is, because you had these two observations that just didn't line up at all. On one hand, you'd have older folks come in, their x-rays would show significant cartilage thinning, what we used to call wear and tear.
Right, looked bad on paper.
Exactly, looked terrible, but they'd report zero pain, great mobility. They looked damaged, but they felt fine.
And then the flip side, which is what you hear about all the time, people with severe stiffness, a lot of pain, you have people who really feel debilitated.
And their scans would come back pretty normal. Their cartilage looked relatively intact structurally. The joint seemed fine, but they were in constant discomfort.
So the conclusion was just inescapable.
It had to be. If the pain and the visible damage don't always line up, then the loss of cartilage itself can't be the main immediate trigger for that stiffness and pain.
So it's more like a final result of the problem.
Typically. Something else has to be causing those initial signals.
That is a huge distinction. So the new question became, if cartilage loss isn't the immediate pain trigger, what is? And the sources are all pointing to the same answer, the joint environment. To make this really clear, let's use the engine analogy that kept coming up in the research.
It's a great analogy.
If you think of your joint as an engine, the cartilage is like the tough metal surface, the piston. But the joint environment, that's everything else. The motor oil, the cooling system, the pressure, all of it.
Exactly. You can have brand new, perfect metal parts, but if you run that engine with no oil, or if the oil is old and thin, that engine is going to seize up fast.
Right.
And doctors realize that even perfect cartilage can't move smoothly if its environment is degraded. And it's that degradation that causes the stiffness and discomfort, long before the real structural damage even starts. We're talking about things like poor lubrication, dehydrated synovial fluid.
What's synovial fluid?
That's the motor oil, the joint's natural lubricant.
Got it.
So you have that, you have inflammatory waste building up, and because of all that, you get less shock absorption.
So the body is basically sending a warning signal about a functional failure, not necessarily a structural one. It's not saying I'm broken. It's saying I'm not working right.
That's a perfect way to put it. The joint capsule has all these nerve endings that sense pressure and friction. When that synovial fluid, the lubricant, thins out, friction goes way up.
Okay.
That constant microirritation triggers inflammation, and that whole inflammatory soup makes the nerve endings even more sensitive, so the stiffness you feel, that's your body's protective response saying, hey, stop before you actually destroy the tissue. It's a warning light.
Not a crash signal.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's drill down on that synovial fluid then. You said it's the star player in this new way of thinking.
It really is. It's the body's super lubricant, and the research now shows how it It slowly degrades with age. The quality changes.
It's not just that you have less of it.
No, it's more than that. The molecules in it, this stuff called hyaluronic acid, they're what makes it so thick and slippery. And those molecules literally start to break down into shorter, less effective bits. The fluid gets thinner.
So the lubrication quality just tanks.
It drops. And
Yeah.
just as important, its ability to hold water and hydrate the cartilage that declines too.
So this is why doctors are starting to use the term dry joints. They're not talking about broken parts. They're talking about lubrication failure.
Exactly, a dry system.
And this explains those classic things everyone talks about. You know, you feel super stiff when you first wake up or after you've been sitting for a while, but then you move around for 5 or 10 minutes and you start to loosen up.
Those aren't signs of bone grinding. That's the classic sign of poor fluid dynamics. When you rest, that thin, degraded fluid just settles. It needs movement and warmth to get redistributed and start trying to do its job again.
It's a sign that the lubricant is failing.
It's insufficient. Yeah.
So if I'm getting this right, focusing only on adding cartilage material is like, it's like pouring sand into an engine that's screaming for oil.
That's a perfect way to put it. And it means the modern strategic question is just fundamentally different now. We've moved on from how do we rebuild cartilage to how do we restore the joint's internal environment so it can move smoothly and hydrate itself again. The goals now are really specific. Rehydrating the tissues, improving the quality of that synovial fluid, supporting the natural lubrication, basically reducing friction at the source. It's about getting rapid relief by fixing the mechanics.
Which explains so clearly why the traditional supplements have been such a disappointment for so many people. They're asking the wrong question.
Completely wrong question.
If your pain is coming from a dry, high-friction environment and you're just taking these structural ingredients for cartilage, you're missing the immediate problem.
Right. Those building blocks, I mean, they take months to even begin to integrate, if they do at all. And they do absolutely nothing for the lubrication failure that's happening right now.
The sources had another great analogy for this.
The one about the house.
Yeah. Giving cartilage nutrients without fixing the environment is like trying to add bricks to a house. With a flooded foundation and a broken cement mixer, the body just can't use them.
It can't. The conditions aren't right.
So this brings us to how this new science is being applied. The sources pointed to things like Biodynamix Joint Genesis as an example of this modern shift.
Right, because it moves away from that sole focus on structural repair and moves towards supporting the function of the environment. When you look at this new generation of support, the ingredients are specifically chosen to address the synovial fluid. They're designed to help with lubrication and friction reduction, often using compounds that help the fluid itself stay healthy.
And the research behind this, some of it coming from, Ivy League-backed labs, it's all about a smarter root cause approach. So why do doctors like this better?
Because it works with the body's own systems. It addresses that early stiffness pretty quickly. By focusing on the fluid and the friction, you get support for long-term function and for the patient. You get noticeable relief without waiting months for some uncertain tissue rebuild. It's about quality of life right now.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, who is this environmental approach really for?
Well, it's defined by how you feel, not by your X-ray. It's especially for people who feel that frustrating stiffness but don't have, major diagnosed joint damage.
Okay.
It's for anyone who struggles with that morning stiffness or that creakiness after sitting. And honestly, it's really for anyone who has already tried the traditional cartilage supplements for months and just felt nothing.
They need a functional fix, not a structural one.
Exactly. Orthopedics is finally adopting more of an engineering mindset. We're not just trying to patch worn-out pavement anymore. We're trying to fix the road conditions, the oil, the pressure that let the car run smoothly in the first place.
That was a fantastic deep dive. I think the key takeaway for you, listening at home, is that the future of joint care isn't this depressing battle against erosion anymore. It's a much smarter strategy focused on functional maintenance. It's about creating the right internal conditions, restoring that hydration and lubrication to help your joints work the way they were designed to, even with small imperfections. So what does this all mean? It means the medical community finally gets that joint health fails gradually. The environment breaks down long before the structural damage gets catastrophic. Lubrication loss comes before the serious pain.
Right.
And that's why any modern solution has to address that functional failure first.
And that leaves us with, I think, a really provocative thought to consider, one that goes beyond just your knees or hips. If the problem with stiff joints is really a functional issue of the internal environment, a system that's basically dry and poorly lubricated, then maybe the real solution isn't just about rebuilding what's lost,
Restoring what's missing.
but restoring what's missing. Which suggests we should maybe all be thinking about how we can actively support the hydration and lubrication of all our body's systems, because that might just be the #1 strategy for staying mobile and comfortable for the long haul.